You can actually access that using a shared username and password we have out there, or your existing eRoom username and password that you might use to access our partner portal. I tend to use this username and password. Here's my contact info. Those of you that don't have it, if you're new to the program, go ahead and jot that down. You can reach me pretty much anytime at that number, or shoot me an email. And what I'd like to do is go through the, we're not going to go through the entire exercise. I actually have the product already installed. But we're going to take a closer look at some of the configuration elements within the IRM product. And we'll walk through what I think might make up a decent demo of the solution. If you need to go out and demo the product to your customers, if you do this kind of thing, I think you'll get the point across, and we'll kind of get into that. So before we do that, here's the eRoom. If you go out there in today's session folder, I've included not only the slides and the hands-on exercise, but also some white papers around using the solution, technical overview. This is more for the full-blown IRM product. I should mention that IRM has been around for a while. It's been integrated with the Documentum solution. It can run as a standalone product, and within that capacity, it does some extra things that we don't do out of the box with the AX integration. Specifically, your AX IRM license entitles you to encrypt content as you come out of AX. What that means is that the document has to be within AX to be protected. So if you have a Word document, let's say you want to protect that, you'd first import it into AX and then export it, and you have all of the controls available to you to protect that content. The full-blown IRM product, on the other hand, that is the standalone product, which costs considerably more from what I understand, that allows you to encrypt the content while in Word. So if you need that kind of functionality, take a closer look at the pricing for that and see if it's worth it. My understanding is that our integration is significantly discounted, and it might be a better fit for you. So let's take a look at the exercise. This is a PDF file. I have it set up basically to help you find the files on PowerLink. You can email a reseller's distribution list to get a demo license for the module. I also ask you to create a SQL Server database and set that up ahead of time before you begin. Once you're done, you'll go in and install the IRM server. I'm just going to run through this quickly. You'll configure the IRM server using the steps I've outlined here. Basically, you're going to set up a database connection. You're going to create a self-signed server certificate. In a real customer implementation, you can also use a certificate from a certificate authority, like Saute or VeriSign, or if you have Windows certificate services, you could generate a certificate. The product is pretty straightforward. Once you load it, you'll log in as an admin and create a user. I'm creating a user called sysop XSCM so that it's easy for me to remember the administrative username and password. I made it match what we have in AX. We'll also create content permissions and configure a sample policy. There's a note here on page 6. I want to talk about this for a second. The policies themselves can be associated with individual applications, or they can be sort of set up in such a way that they can be applied to any application across the board. So it's up to you, really. It's dependent on the naming convention that you use. So if you create a policy that's named after the data source, you see an example here with Rockville, application name, loan documents, and then the policy name confidential. That policy will be available for a specific application. It'll show up in the list, if you will. You can select it when you're going to export a document. The policy is pretty straightforward. It's hard to see in this screenshot. We're going to look at this a little more closely when we launch the admin. But you can actually control who can print the document, who can copy the text and the graphics, who can edit the document, whether or not guest access is allowed. You can also disallow programmatic decryption, which is there is a full-blown API for this interface, so you can programmatically encrypt and decrypt things. Yeah, so you'll build or use an existing application, you'll export the content and apply the policy, and at that point that'll protect the content. The last part of the exercise, I go in and I destroy access to the document by deleting a key from the IRM server. So what you'll see me do is go in and shred the key on that central server. And what that means is that no matter how many copies of the document I've distributed, users, when they go to access the document, even if they're authorized users, they won't be able to open it because I've destroyed access centrally. Okay, so let's take a look at how it works. First, I'm going to go into the IRM server administrator program. This runs separately from, any of the AX tools. In fact, the only touch point for AX really, or configuration point, is within the AX admin program. You'll basically point the system at the IRM server. The rest of it happens through API calls. The administrator is laid out in this sort of weird-looking gray screen. Not very sexy, but it's fairly straightforward how to use it. Going from left to right, we've got a users menu where we can configure users. These are the shared secret users that I talked about earlier. You can actually create users in a way similar to AppGen. Just create a username and password. We also, from within this users menu, have the ability to add what are called authentication domains. There's several different flavors, including password, secure ID, and certificate domains. So if we wanted to use the X509 certificate, we could actually add a certificate authentication domain. If, on the other hand, we wanted to integrate with AD, we would add a password domain and provide the domain name, and that would enable single sign-on. We can import users and use those for authentication. We have the ability to create groups. I have a group here for my sysop user. It's at the group level that we can configure things like content permissions. The user that is, there's a shared user, basically, that's used during the protection process. So what I mean by that is when you go to export content out of AX, this particular user will be used to apply all of the policies and actually encrypt the content. For that to happen, this shared user needs to have specific content permissions, and I outline those in the exercise. But we need the protection privilege at least, and that's a common mistake. We even had some guys here that were trying to get it set up, and they skipped this step and they couldn't get it to work. But I call that out in the exercise. The protection permission is required, along with the allow creation of custom policies. Under users, we have the ability to configure email users, and there's a client for IRM BlackBerry. These are features that would be available if you bought the full-blown standalone product. We don't protect emails or out-of-the-box support decryption for the IRM BlackBerry users. If you want access to that functionality, we can turn that on, but it requires additional licensing. Under the policy menu, we've got a ton of different ways to protect content. One of the ways we can protect content is to specify what IP addresses are allowed to connect to the solution. So we create what are called network entities. This is another layer of protection. Lee Turner asked about, do you drop a server in the DMZ or what have you? This solution goes beyond that and allows you to, once the IP address comes in, it's effectively a whitelist, so we can allow or disallow access to the solution based on these particular host addresses, the subnets, or even the domains. Those are network entities. I don't have any set up in the exercise. But we also have time specifications, so you can control when the solution is turned on, basically. So you could actually set up a situation where access is only allowed weekdays from 9 to 5. If someone tries to open a document outside of those hours, they get an error message. We have named policies, and that's actually what we're going to set up today. You'll actually go in and create a new policy. You'll give it a name. This will be a global policy. And you'll actually add the sysop group. You'll give them allow permissions. You could actually create multiple users and multiple groups in here and add those. And then you'll specify what permissions are available for this particular policy. So if I want to create a situation where the users can view the content, and that's it, I'm done. This access here is implied. They can view. If I wanted to grant them additional privileges like the ability to copy content, copy a section of the PDF and reuse it in another document, I could check this box. If I want to protect a Word document, such that they can't print it, but I want them to be able to edit the document for whatever reason, I could check this box here so that they could have edit document permissions. Jeff McFarland asked about offline access. That's controlled here, so we can control the maximum lease duration. We also have the ability to watermark. So I don't have any set up, but we can centrally configure watermarks and apply those so that across the page it says something like confidential, do not print under penalty of death, stuff like that. This also appears in prints. So if we print that document, if they have the print privilege and they print, the watermark shows up. I'm not going to share that policy, or save it rather. Here's where we create the watermarks. Actually stamp a PDF with an image file, might have, and I'm not going to go through the rest of this. Content, we have a menu to basically a little search interface. So we can go in and search for all of the documents that we currently have under administration. So I'm not going to specify any search criteria here. I'm just going to click Find Now. And basically, I'm getting an error because I don't have any documents currently protected. But I've already deleted all the documents that were under protection. You could actually highlight those documents and delete the key, which would essentially disable access to the document. You could also, show you here, you have the ability to view, who's accessed the document, and this is the audit trail, so you can see who opened the document and when. Do I want to talk about that? Yeah. Under the settings section here, we can specify the URL for the client installation. So by default, the user is directed to the Authentica URL here to download the plugin if they don't already have it. So just to use the example I talked about earlier, if I sent a file, the price list, to Jeff McFarland, when he goes to open that the first time, if he doesn't have the IRM plugin installed for Adobe, he'll be directed to download that content from the Authentica website. He'll click on a link and it'll walk him through the plugin installation. So I think I've talked enough. Let's see